All the Cowboys news as we sit 72 days from Cowboys and Eagles. You can hear it on 105.3 The Fan. I am Gavin Dawson from the G-Bag Nation. There is a Dak Prescott story, puts the blame squarely on his shoulders from one of the most respected voices in football data. We'll get to that story. We also have Cowboys having fun in the sun. It was been a tremendous week of video content. We'll relive the best here on How About Wow. Let's do it.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Dak's story here in just a sec, partner. The story breaking this morning, and I think it's very interesting. I don't know, maybe it has to do with the divide between Micah Parsons and David Mulligetta and the Jones boys, the player, the agent, and the team. But arbitrator found that the NFL encouraged teams to collude regarding contracts here, basically since the Deshaun Watson deal. It's interesting, both the league and the union wanted to cover this up, but Pablo Torre found it, Newbear.
I love this so much because it fuels the conspiracy theorists out there. If you believe that the NFL is the WWE in helmets and shoulder pads and Roger Goodell nodding along to the script writing isn't an inside joke or him winking and smiling and playing along and that's facts, hashtag. I just can't with this, man, because it fuels the fire for everybody who thinks that, Taylor Swift and the flags for the Chiefs and, the NFL draft or other things that you would rig like the NBA lottery, and you bring all this stuff into it. It makes you wonder what else they're doing that we don't know about.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, what else is the league and the union in cahoots about? I couldn't imagine being the union and not wanting to weaponize this and go to the public, say, look, this is why they're screwing us over, because whenever contract holdouts come up, the teams all go out of their way to try to dig up dirt and paint the player in a negative light. This is your trump card, union. I'd be pushing all in with this. And I tell you what, if I was David Mulligetta, ain't no way I'm letting Jerry Jones, who's probably the ringleader of this kind of nonsense, off the hook on the Micah Parsons deal or any others.
Player safety, right? And then in a world, did I freeze? I froze.
You did freeze, but I have your audio. So go ahead, buddy.
I was making air quotes, player safety in a world where we're going to be in 18, 20 game seasons in our lifetime. There's so many of these different elements that you can pick apart, but to your point, the agents weaponizing some of this stuff. I think that's always what's most surprising in it, is that it's not hard to understand why NFL contracts aren't fully guaranteed like other sports with a 3.3-year average life cycle and the injury risk and just the explosive nature of how guys go down. You see guys play forever in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, et cetera. And that's just not the case in the NFL. At the same time, just because, Deshaun Watson, because the Cleveland Browns did that, and irrespective of how it worked out and the news that broke and, all the low-hanging fruit about our new sponsor at the massage parlor aside,
they did massage studio, Newbear.
They did what they did, and Deshaun Watson got a guarantee. They also gave up picks. It was a disaster of a move, but at the same time, like, it was well within the team's rights. And it was one of those seminal moments where, from a turning point perspective, you said, okay, well, if a quarterback can get it fully guaranteed, how much or what percentage of like a Micah Parsons deal would then be guaranteed down the road? And now it seems like they're trying to tear the whole thing down from the inside out.
Okay, next story here on How About Wow. Like the video if you want to help us grow. Dak Prescott news. Warren Sharp is the guy doing the stuff, and I love Warren Sharp myself, Newbear. I mean, I think he does a tremendous job packaging analytics for the consumer to understand better. As the analytics have grown and become a big part of game planning and game day in the NFL, the fans have kind of been on the outside looking in, and I think Warren Sharp does a hell of a job at not only identifying the stats that equate to winning and losing in the NFL and painting that picture, but then identifying narratives inside teams that can be polarizing and can create incredible content and headlines. He tweets, Vegas set the over-under for the Cowboys at 7.5, and that says more about Dak than any stat ever could. He's paid like a franchise quarterback, but is he? And I think if you want to say, does Dak play as good as the contract, the answer to that is no. I mean, we've established the Cowboys got whooped on this contract, but the good news is he's still good enough that this shouldn't prevent you from competing. And I don't think it has. Dak Prescott has been overpaid for a while now, and it's annoying. It's almost like the Joneses think having the top paid quarterback is a badge of honor. Like, congratulations, pin that on your Weeblo shirt, And I don't understand, why they've mismanaged the contracts in the way that they have. But it's interesting, and he gets in here with some really compelling data. But me, Numer, as much as I want to say I'm not sure Dak Prescott's even a top 10 quarterback, he's not the reason this organization has failed. It's the organization's inability to identify who Dak Prescott really is.
Can I just say that I love that the camera froze with me looking about as smug as possible. And if this is what we're going to do, and this is what the people are going to get today, you're welcome. To piggyback off of where you're taking this narrative, I think it would be irresponsible to not dig into, like you said, some of the great points that he makes, and while valid and fair and however you want to shape it, about the expectation, right? To whom much is given, much is required, not expected, but required is the way that he phrases it in quotes. And I agree with that. I was just arguing with you the other day about at the end of the day, just like this article says, even though wins and losses isn't necessarily the best way to win or evaluate, grade, rank the legacy of a quarterback. That's what we do. And one of the things that I want to unpack a little bit is to say that.
Hold on, Newberry. Let's do this. Why don't you jump out of the StreamYard real quick and jump back in? And I'm going to go through some of the highlights of this piece that you are well aware of by now. And by the time you get back in here in like 45 seconds, you'll be rip-roaring. I think that's a great place to just allow you a moment to refix this StreamYard and see if we can get a video feed going. Sharp writes, we can blame things like the rest of the roster and the coaching all we want, but at the end of the day, quarterbacks are remembered for playoff runs or the lack thereof. And I agree. I just think it's a mistake of the media and the fans and how they look at a quarterback's role in creating wins. Here you are, New Bear. Okay, you're joining mid-take. I'm saying I think this is a mistake by the media and the fans and how much credit we give quarterbacks when really only a few of them have done it. And if you want to say he's not Mahomes or he's not Brady, I totally agree with you. But we need to acknowledge that and put the blame on the organization for not giving him a good enough team. It's the Cowboys' inability to evaluate their own here, New Bear. We're aware how they do that in free agency, overpaying their own players quite often, thinking they're Pro Bowlers. They're just starters, Terrence Steele. Okay, what are we doing? Jalen Smith. Oh, this guy can play. And he's playing on one leg. Okay, so the Cowboys fail to look at Dak and say, hey, this is a bus driver quarterback. And that's not Dak's fault. He's doing all he can to maximize his ability.
Yeah, when you talk about ability and total picture, I think it would be irresponsible if we don't take a step back here and also reroute this conversation about the NFC during Dak's time. Everyone talks about how top heavy the AFC is, and you can argue, I will listen to any argument about Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Herbert, if he gets his shit together and figures it out on playoff Sunday. I get it. But at the same time, can we not ignore the fact that you're talking about peak Aaron Rodgers? You're talking about Matthew Stafford proving that he was, in fact, the prince that was promised. He wasn't just Jay Cutler, on an island up in Detroit. When you put him in a place with a coach, with talent around him, with a defense and a team that was all in, they won the whole damn thing. That's a
great point, New Bear. And Stafford was thrown away as a guy that can't win big games because he throws too many picks.
Well, and at the same time, okay, so let's talk about Matt Ryan, because I think you would say that, and he's an MVP of the league, and Dak was the closest he's come as runner-up in AP2. But Matt Ryan MVP year, who's his offensive coordinator? Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan gets the Niners job. Who's his offensive coordinator going forward? Sarkisian. Like, when you talk about Sean McVay, when you talk about Sean Payton and Drew Brees, again, existing in the Dak timeline, the NFC was not weak. The NFC was not, maybe not as top heavy, maybe not as young and top heavy, maybe not super duper star. But are you kidding me where we're going to sit here and we're going to say that this gauntlet that you got to run with the teams, with their coaches and their genius level OCs, with superstar talent around these guys, and then you also go all in and mortgage the future dead cap money, void, like all the games that you can play for this year, like the Rams in particular. When have the Cowboys ever done that? When have the Cowboys? This is the first year that that CD, since he's proven to be, if not the best, and right there after Chase or right there after Jefferson, have a running buddy. This is 3 straight years of offensive line first round. This year is a year where, if healthy, you could take a step back and say there are no excuses, because Schottenheimer has the potential to be genius level. I know you got something queued up to get into that a little bit, where you say, okay, you got culture, you got an OC who's got a little bit of a genius bent, you got playmakers, you got beef up front to protect. That's what we're talking about now. But when you look at it over the past decade and change, all there's really been around Dak is change. Everything.
And I don't think we are Dak apologists in any way, New Bear. And this is what I love about this show and love about you. We're just trying to get down to the objective truth here. We're not trying to make excuses for the guy or pin it on somebody. But I mean, we all know Jerry Jones is bad at his job, and he's the GM. You know, how do we get to putting so much of it on Dak Prescott? I think it's searching for a polarizing angle, and I think he found it, but you know, I think it's unfair to the player to put so much of this organization's failures on his shoulders.
Yeah, and like you said, or like you always say, excuse me, you know, what's the fine line between hope and homer? And, you know, as we unpack these things, I fucking hate Drew Brees. I tried to fight him when he was at Purdue.
You did.
I'm over here, you know, standing on business about the team around Sean Payton, can't guard Mike, et cetera, at all. When you draft the quarterback, you develop around him. You have the genius level coach designing plays for those players. You go all in on the other side of the ball, and you push all the chips into the. That's why it's so frustrating when Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. That's why it's so frustrating when, you know, the San Francisco 49ers injury wire is a mash unit, because that team is doing everything they can to capitalize on a rookie quarterback contract that far outseeded expectations.
Even when you do everything, you can get, you know, screwed, like the Saints did 2 in a row. You know, so, I think you're making a great point about these quarterbacks, Breeze and Rodgers, that these guys are beyond Dak Prescott, right? They are Hall of Famers. And even them in great situations with, you know, pretty good coaches or great coaching, depending on how you look at McCarthy and Peyton, couldn't get the job done. After Rodgers one great year, how many MVPs, how many 13-win seasons, they couldn't get it done. I think because Green Bay left too many holes on their roster, just as the Cowboys do. Let me get into a little bit more of Warren Sharp's here so we can, you know, get to some more stories before we got to run, New Bear. Warren writes, we can blame things like the rest of the roster and the coaching all we want, but at the end of the day, quarterbacks are remembered for playoff runs or the lack thereof. I don't know what that word back there was. I'm day drinking again. Prescott's being paid like he's capable of leading a team on a playoff run. We can nitpick his offensive line and running backs and defense all we want, but for guys like Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson, no one uses those things as excuses for the lack of a run.
Bullshit.
And why is that?
Every time Mahomes loses, and he's been a bad Super Bowl quarterback, he could almost be ringless if we're going to be real about this. Every time they lose, they say what? No cheetah, wide receivers injured, offensive line injured, Joe Tooney playing left tackle, and oh, by the way, Travis Kelce's fat. Like, that's what we do. Lamar Jackson's receivers can't catch a cold. That's the game that we play, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I just either pick a side and get in and drive that bus, or don't. Like, you can't play both sides of it.
I think what happens here is, you know, you have a take and you're running it out and you're getting feedback and you're just cherry picking pieces of the feedback saying, this is how people react to it. That's just a subsection of your reactions. It's just triggering and emotional for you. So you cling to it and identify stronger with it.
I will say, like I said the other day, and going forward, if you're the starting pitcher and they hand you the ball, if you're the goalie and you're supposed to stop the shots, and you give up 5 homers, you give up 5 goals, right? You take the blame. If you're the closer and you come in and you're supposed to be lights out and you give up the game, if you're whatever sport you want to talk about, if you're handed the ball and you're in control as much as you can be with the swirl around you, the hardest thing to do in sports is hit a baseball. The second hardest thing to do is be an NFL quarterback. It is as tough as it gets. That's why you get paid the way you get paid. And at the end of the day, you're going to get judged on whether you win or you lose. He has not even been to an NFC championship game. I get it.
Yeah.
But to try to pretend that he's out there in this void where everyone else is just propping him up and he sucks without looking at all the other stuff around him is shit.
Okay, good stuff. And this comes from a place, by the way, we respect Warren Sharp a lot. I just think this was a mistake, and maybe he's engagement farming a little bit. Everybody in the Cowboys, media or sphere of influence can get influenced by that. He concludes with this question, New Bear. Says there are only two options. You must believe either one or the other. Dak's a franchise QB making $60 a year that most teams would die for, or Dak's not worth $60 million and is not a franchise quarterback capable of willing his team to a deep playoff run. I think that's a logical flaw. That's false choice. I believe there's definitely room for third or fourth options depending on how you look at it, right?
Yeah, and it's also the Dallas Cowboys. It's also Jerry Jones. Like, they love, and they're going to do it with Micah. They love having the highest paid quarterback. They love having what Micah will become the highest paid defensive player, because then you're saying we're better than everyone, or at the very least, we're bigger than everyone. And here's the guys that we're going to trot out in front of the nation, for the world, really, for America's team, because we believe in our guys more than anyone else believes in anything ever. And there's this outlying element to that because of the way that they do business. What you're talking about, opposite ends of the yin and yang, opposite ends of the spectrum, top and bottom, like if there's a third or a fourth choice, if he was at 52 where he should have been, if he was at 45, or if you're willing to just kind of take a step back and say when he's healthy, they win the division, right? And that, in 2016
last year, but yeah, I get your point.
2016 as a rookie, he goes toe-to-toe with that great comeback against Aaron Rodgers. Then Aaron Rodgers makes a play that only Aaron Rodgers can, maybe him and two other guys can make, right? And in the history of the game. And they lose
with the old calf, by the way, Halliburton.
And they lose one score games. Pollard goes down, they score 12 points, they go out to the 40. Like, you can make this case where Dak Prescott is good enough to gut wrench, and that's his ceiling. And you can say that, and you can stand on that business. At the same time, this is the first year where him being healthy and the offense being around him being healthy and any injury luck from the defense, this will probably be the closest picture that we truly get. And I'm saying that even with young Zeke, because Dak is now a vet, because Dak is now entering that second 9 of his career, and he's seen all the pictures. He understands where the check should be. And now going forward, if healthy, you can put all the blame on him.
You can, I think, but if you get that defensive health luck that you mentioned there, it's Dawson and New Bear. How about wow? Little technical difficulties there as we transition to our next story, my man. I think well said there. And this next story actually goes, kind of hand in hand with this topic. Des Bryant predicts NFC East will win the Super Bowl this year and take shots at the Giants. Giants might be getting better if you look at their skill, and they're going to get better quarterback play than they've had. And their defense was actually quietly average last year. I don't think the Giants can win the Super Bowl. I just don't think I'd be taking shots at them. Obviously, the Eagles are going to be the Eagles. And what is that? Slightly worse than last year when they were the most dominant team by a long stretch. Is that still good enough to win the East and the Super Bowl? I think it could be. But then I look at Washington and, the additions that they made improving their roster, not just Deebo Samuel, but, they did a really nice job getting Javon Kinlaw as well and Laramie Tunsil. So they're going to be more physical. I think Washington will be better. That doesn't necessarily mean like everybody in the NFC East has a tough schedule. So maybe they don't have as many wins as last year. But I think clearly the Cowboys are the third pick in the NFC East. If I was Des Bryant, I would say Philly, Washington, with an outside shot for the Cowboys. Their secondary, to me, in New Bear, I love what you did there in that last thing. I think their secondary just has way too many questions, and their linebackers are too mid. Right? They're going to have to play with a big lead and turn those pass rushers loose if they want to have a winning formula throughout the year.
It's funny that you say that, because you could be talking about the Giants, you could be talking about the Cowboys, you could be talking about, right? There's a lot of similarities here with these rosters in this division. Sports Illustrated, Bleacher Report through Sports Illustrated through a lot of the back and forth, you've got folks saying Schoppenheimer's the real deal, 11-6, and that Vegas is dead ass wrong. And as you go through some of these breakdowns of people getting excited, it goes back to the George Pickens move. That was the bat signal where you said Jerry Jones is delivering on the pre-draft promise to go make moves, make splashes, get guys, bring in dudes. What's going to be really interesting to see is who's healthy when you get to Oxnard, who's healthy as this thing starts shaking out closer to opening kickoff, because there's still guys out there. I mean, Twitter was buzzing the other day about bringing Gillylock back, right? So, I mean, there's still dudes out there on the waiver wire who are waiting for some of these guys to go down in camp. And, I think you hope that the GP bat signal means there's more to come in the event that some of these guys aren't ready to run.
Yes. There's a lot of ways this thing could come together. And I think a lot of it starts with success early in the Eagles game. In the Bears, you have the Bears in there, the good defense, and then the Packers. Can you win 3 of those first 4 and set yourself up now to take advantage of the Jets and the Panthers as the season sort of hits its midway point? Then you get Denver week 8. Then you get into November and win maybe Lamb and Overshown might be on their way back to the football team. Boy, StreamYard's really giving me a hard time. I hope this all is getting recorded because we got good content here flying around for you. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to look at, New Bear, was this this Bleacher Report prediction on the coaching staff, because I think if you feed that Des Bryant idea and where the Cowboys are through the lens of new coaching staff, shoddy. I know he's brought in Ken Dorsey. He has one other guy that's done NFL game day, but Connor Riley, Clayton Adams, your 2 main offensive assistants, no play calling experience, no NFL game day experience. Like, there is a gap here. And then you look at defense, just changing coordinators and essentially your scheme for a 3rd year in a row, having a different DC. There's growing pains to be had there. But as I bring up this story here for you, as we come over to SI's recap of this Bleacher Report story, and I think you got this thing for us, New Bear. They're saying Shoddy's going to have an impressive first season on the sidelines.
11-6. Can we mandate that he's always in the Spurrier visor? I love the connection with him and the head ball coach. Yeah. The one thing that's interesting about, Dorsey's a guy that people are hot and cold on. He had success as a player. He also had some limitations as a player. He's had success as an OC. He's also had some people, don't let the door hit you. But, like we talk about all the time, if things would never end if things were always good, right? So everyone's been fired. Everyone's been let go or moved on to the next place, and there's circumstances just like we talked about around Dak, everywhere you go and however you break down a roster, and unless you're in those rooms, you don't ever really know. And I think what's fascinating about this team heading into this year, to your point about the inexperience or the lack of Sunday experience specifically, is always bleeping open. Is you've got some guys, and Jaden Blue coming out of the backfield one-on-one, Jaden Blue in the slot, George Pickens anywhere on the field. You've got some get-right guys. You've got some guys where even if you call a play and you can't get out of a check, you don't want to burn a first-half timeout, fuck it. George is down there somewhere, and a 50-50 ball to him is different than to anybody else. So any of the growing pain stuff is somewhat mitigated by the fact that you should, at the very least, be able to count on 3 dudes inside pushing people around and 2 dudes outside and a dude coming out of the backfield before you throw in Turpin or before you throw in Fergie reverting back to Pro Bowl form. You should have a lot of one-on-ones, and you should have a lot of situations, a lot of opportunities for dudes to go make plays after the catch and do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, right?
Yeah, so that's going to be huge. I think the bigger thing is, can you get a run game going off of that? Because I think that's guaranteed. Lamb and Pickens are going to have monster years. And if you can run the ball effectively and physically, then I think it gives you a chance to be totally overwhelming on offense if you get good play from your tackle.
Where do you sit in terms of last year, knowing how they kind of tried to force Zeke into one more, last hurrah, and it was really ugly out the gate. And then, Dowdle only had the 27-yard long gain, but the 53.8 success rate, 4.6 a carry, and 20-20 offense, stall out in the red zone kind of thing. Where do you sit on whether it's Javonte or Miles, or if it's Blue and he ends up being those Barry Sanders type measurables, and he's able to take on more than 12 or 15 and hold on to the ball, touches per game? Where do you sit in terms of being stubborn with it? If they come out and they say Javonte's the guy and it's 3.8, 3.9, but your play action pass is successful off that, ball control, not turning it over, and maybe you're not scoring 30 a game, but you're 21, 24, 27, you're dictating tempo, you're winning games.
I like that. It worked in 2014. Murray had a huge year, so you were getting breakout runs too. But you're saying you're not getting the breakout runs, but you're going to keep running the football,
right?
And you're getting play action and you're getting points. As long as you're converting first downs, as long as you are getting those explosive plays, I think that can work. But I don't think you have to get there, and I don't think they would lock in on Javonte Williams, because the reason they did it with Zeke was TV ratings. You don't get that with Javonte Williams. Nobody's tuning in and going like, oh, Zeke's playing, or oh, Javonte Williams is playing, right? And maybe by midseason last year, the fans had totally turned on Zeke, but at least at the beginning, there were a lot of fans that still believed. So, I think that's a marketing play or a hope play or a, hey, we're not very good this year, at least put Zeke on TV type of play. There isn't that player there. So I genuinely believe running back will be a meritocracy this year. It's not always that way with the Cowboys, unfortunately.
Hot hand.
Yeah. Up next on How About Wow here, Dawson and New Bear, CeeDee Lamb was making it rain. Let's have some fun with Cowboys summer audio video. Yeah, he's hooping, man. Just crushing it. Let me see if I can get this audio. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! 3 in a row!
Dude, those are bombs too, aren't they? I mean, what is that? Is that 25 or 30 feet? That's like Steph Curry warming up style.
It's really fun to, everyone talks about how athletes want to be rappers and rappers want to be athletes, and then they do the same thing where they create these arguments about, which sport has the best athletes, or, people talk about LeBron James playing, wide receiver like they did in high school in many cases. And I think it's really tough. The argument for me is football versus hockey, because hockey is in some ways football on skates. It's that element of it is fascinating. Plus, those dudes lose a tooth, they just spit it out and keep it moving, right? Like, you talk about toughness and grit, and then athleticism and being able to do things that other people can't do. I think CeeDee Lamb, you've said this before about Pickens, right? That he would be good at any sport that he tried to play. And you look at those guys with the long arms, and you think about, Michael Jordan trying to go back and play baseball again and stuff like that. What's really funny about, some of these wide receivers, Pickens and Lamb and guys that are 6'2", 6'3", even 6'4", is like, there ain't a whole lot anymore, 6 foot and change point guards, right? There's not a whole lot of Chris Pauls running around out there anymore, but you can convert and go play football. And it's fascinating to think about it the other way around, because if you ran him out there, it sure looks like he could take some money off some folks.
Absolutely, he could. Okay, whose jersey would you want right now? We go to Micah Parsons at FanFest. Apparently, he asked Tom Brady for an autographed jersey.
I think he's always wanted one, and he was supposed to get one, and because Brady kept going to one of his staffers who was filming. I think one of his staffers dropped the ball, because Brady previously had sent one to Micah and they never put it in the mail, kind of thing. So Micah was like crushed because Tom was like, I got you. And then Tom's team didn't send it. And now Micah's kind of got him cornered at FanFest, and he's getting a little bit, playing for the cameras, getting a little bit emotional.
I just want a jersey, fam.
Yeah.
I want it to my house.
Yeah.
Act like a super fan to a guy that no doubt he's a super fan too. One of the things I've noticed from being in broadcast for 25 years is the players who were great before you got in still hold that ability to make you absolutely freeze. Like, holy crap. Oh, yeah. There's Tiger Woods. That was it for me at the Western Conference Finals, like getting used to interviewing all the players and cool, I'm comfortable. But then walks in a legend like a Clyde Drexler or a Tiger Woods or whatever from your childhood, and it's just like it takes you back to being a fan.
I remember one time we were at Rucker Park doing a really cool basketball installation, and Melo and like all the Brand Jordan guys and ancillary other Nike folks, and there's all this really cool stuff going on. But then there's Mike. And it's just different because it's not just you freezing or being starstruck. Mello and all those other dudes, they're the same way, right? So,
okay, I love that, and that just gave me the idea. We got to get these stories on film, bro. Like, how much of these details can you tell of playing horse with LeBron and on photo shoots with Jordan? Can you get into all this?
I mean, what's the statute of limitations now, right? I mean,
nothing illegal. We're just, telling stories from New Bear's incredible life in sports marketing over the years.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you know what? I was just talking about this the other day. Is like when we were coming up, it was like you almost had to sign paperwork that said, "I will not ask for a photo." Whereas now it's like, how quickly can we get it on social media? And they want to, and many of them use here's the hash, here's a 3x or 4x6, here's all the things you need to tweet, right? Like, and so I have some cool, like I got to dig up some of the outtake stuff where like you can hear me talking off camera and there's Kobe or there's Bruce Willis, but I don't have a bunch of like Polaroids and stuff, in the office because that's just not how it was. But what's really fun about some of this stuff and thinking about being there is, short of one day getting Alzheimer's or having dementia or whatever, is as long as I can remember it, I can see those pictures and think about those moments. And then, we'll have to start to unpack some of the fun stuff. Cause when you go out when you're in Vegas and you're watching these guys play against each other off camera, and then maybe you're playing horse or, you're goofing around and doing fun stuff. Like, that's your day job. And that's you don't realize sometimes while you're doing that, how unique, how special, how cool that is, because like how many people get to do that, right? So looking back and reflecting on it is really cool. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of love.
You betcha, buddy. I can't wait to dig into those stories, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on how Cowboys rookie Tyler Baker is moving. Let's see this.
Go.
He did just, oh my good, get out.
So you can see the sign Par Field. He's up in Connecticut at his old high school doing the Tyler Booker football camp. And it's impressive. He's keeping up with like a 16-year-old wide receiver here, New Bear. And maybe he would have got him. I don't know, but he reached out and slapped him. I imagine that the organizers and maybe a lawyer was like, maybe we don't want to do that in future Tyler Book camps. But it's great that nobody got hurt. No harm, no foul.
No harm, no foul. I mean, those drills, you get into stuff, especially when you're not in pads and it's like a different kind of physicality, right? Because are you expecting that? Are you expecting another man to put his hands on you, let alone a 300 plus pound, And then that kid just is out of the picture, right? It's like a glitch in the game. But what I love about that is the competitiveness. And he came in and he said from the jump, right, I'm going to do things the right way. Everyone talked about OTAs at minicamp. Like every day is an opportunity to get better. Every day is an opportunity for me to, show the best version of myself, compete. And when you think about the middle now, Booker, right, Beebe, Smith, like these guys are going to be nasty.
Yes, they are. And you see the athleticism right here. I guess he doesn't have enough athleticism to be great, like a great pulling guard right now. And I thought it was encouraging that immediately after drafting him, the Cowboys started talking about we're going to go more power inside, right? They're going to play to their strengths, because right now those three guys up the middle, like if you don't screw this up, you should bully the league into third and short from the very beginning. Because these guys, we can talk about how it's not a guarantee the coaching staff is going to be good, but they have bona fides, man. They have figured out how to run the ball in the modern era of football and gotten advantages in situations like Arizona and Kansas State. And I feel like that's exactly what you need: adaptability and problem solving more than schemes for the modern coaching staff. So I'll be patient if it's not brilliant from the very beginning, because I have confidence ultimately they're going to get this thing figured out. How About Wow brought to you by our friends at Elements Massage. Let me go ahead and share that screen and tell you, if you call either of the two Frisco locations, the one at the Star or by the soccer stadium there on Main Street, they have a How About Wow special for you. Very popular spot for the players up there. FC Dallas, the Cowboys, Frisco Rough Riders, they love this spot, and you will as well. Elements Massage. This is just the two Frisco locations. Well, buddy, that's going to do it for another edition of How About Wow. Thank you so much for riding with us. Again, 72 days till camp. Of course, we got all the goods over there on howboutwow.com, New Bear.